Welcome to segment 2 of Binder TV's Inside IH, where we look at what's going on behind the scenes of anything International Harvester. In segment 1, we talked to Jeff about the Sierra IH Fall Rally and his role in the Great American Build-Off. And today we ran over to his personal garage, and we're going to try to catch up with him and find out about the trip to Alaska and the ultimate adventure. How'd that go?
Oh man, let me tell you, what a blast, what a dream to, not just go to Alaska. A lot of people just go to Alaska. We went to Alaska in an old International Harvester Scout, wheeled it, and drove it back, 7,500 miles in 18 days.
That was the total mileage?
That was just a hair over 7,500 miles and 18 days. Really technically under 18 days if you went by the hours, but yeah, there was not every day we were behind the wheel of this Scout driving it, whether it was to the event, during the event, or coming home.
So at the end of our first segment, I was going to ask you, okay, you got home from the Nationals and your win.
We didn't get home that easy. So
that's where I'm headed. So what happened when you got home, and then tell us about the first few days of your adventure, and then I'll have a few questions here and there.
Yeah, so we left Ohio on a high. We just won the Great American Build-Off. Just totally stoked, but knew I had to get home and I needed to get behind the wheel of the Scout first thing in the morning. Chad Maycroft was going to meet me here. We were going to just load up and at least get 600 miles in. That was the minimum we had to do every day to get to Alaska in time for Ultimate. And we left Ohio, got to Minneapolis, ran across the airport. And the unnamed airline company, even though the plane was still waiting there, cabin doors were closed. They wouldn't let us on.
Oh.
So I explained to them, hey man, I got to be somewhere tomorrow. It's just how it is. It's either you leave tomorrow morning or we'll fly you to San Francisco. Okay, so we flew to San Francisco, had to rent a car at 1 a.m., get to Sacramento airport, pick up our car, drop off Michael and Darren along the way. I got home and I got into bed, I think 5 a.m. Monday morning. I slept for maybe 2.5 hours, if that. Got up, called Chad, said, hey, come on over, I'm waking up, and he came over, we loaded up, and we officially hit the road at 11 a.m.
So luckily, before you had left for Ohio, you must have been packed, and all your gear was ready to go. Everything was
correct.
Prearranged.
I was pretty much 99% ready to go, with the exception of my travel bag, because I was in Ohio. And Chad just had his duffel bag, some final clothes and stuff to put in. The Dometic fridge in the Scout had already been plugged in. There was already food and beverage in it. Scout was, gassed up, greased up, oiled up. Everything was ready to go. So yeah, all I had to do was just throw in that one bag, turn the key, and
head on out.
Pedal to the metal, to start heading north.
So you had a goal of covering so many miles per day. Did you meet that goal?
We did. We made just over 600 miles that day. I think we drove till about 9-10 o'clock at night. Made it north of Portland into Washington. I don't even remember what town we stayed in, but we caught a hotel, got the next morning, got to Border Patrol, and I thought the trip was about to change. As we pull in, they ask you a series of questions, and I'd never been through Canada, and Chad had, and he had a prior experience where they asked him a question, he answered it honestly, and
it was pull over there?
Correct, and it was like, hey, we can't find that, we don't know what you're talking about, don't bother us again. So this time we're going through, and they ask, hey, you ever been in trouble in the States? And Chad said, no, not really. You guys pull over
there. Not really doesn't mean...
So we walk into the building, and the guy calls Chad up, and I can't quite hear, but I can see that the guy's not happy with Chad. And Chad's trying to explain himself, and I'm sitting there going, man, shoot, am I taking Chad to the airport and then I'll have to go pick him up in Anchorage? or he's just call an Uber and can go to the airport, and I'll pick him up in Anchorage. So I thought from there, I'm driving by myself.
All kinds of things are going through your mind.
Absolutely, and then all of a sudden the guy hands it to him, says, enjoy your stay in Canada, and walk off. And I'm like, dude, what was that all about? He goes, I got in trouble when I was 19 years old, and the last time they asked me about it, they couldn't find it. And they said, don't waste their time.
Don't bring it up again.
So anyways, it was kind of like a heart pounder. You think, if anything could be tossed at you to mess up your trip, that'd be something. But
so I guess when you go to the border of Canada, or probably go to any country, be clear. Don't say not really, and don't be wishy-washy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? See?
Absolutely, and even if the last border agent said something, if the fact's a fact, man, just tell them this is what it is, and anyways, they let us through, and that was...
So you hit Canadian roads?
We hit Canadian roads, and, as we're heading north, it's still a lot of cars and stuff getting into, I think, St. George, and then we started kind of heading west, and the further west we went, the less cars, and we were taking what's called the western route. There you go. Now this is my first time in Canada, so Chad been there before. He had this book called Milepost, pretty cool. He's being my, total guide, just telling me what every tenth of a mile or kilometer up there in Canada is, and it was really cool. But yeah, we would see less and less and get into rougher and rougher roads. Just real exciting, what awesome country out there, seeing these lakes that go on for 20 miles, and you don't even see anybody fishing them or nothing.
Just open.
Just open country, no power lines, no nothing, and it was it's like, wow, I've traveled across the United States many times, but I was in such awe of the country up there, just because it was even less populated.
So on the stretch, they tell you how far the next exit is, and what's at that exit, and the further up you get, what's there?
The whole time we're driving, Chad's not just sitting there. He's calculating where we need to go. We knew the 600 miles was our thing, so you're trying to find towns. And again, he had traveled through there before, so he had at least a little prior knowledge of what we might find and how populated a town might be.
Correct me if I'm wrong, was he in a coach? Motor coach?
No, he was in a truck pulling a trailer.
Okay.
When he went through. So, but some of these towns, you may show up a town on the map, but you get there, and the gas station's been long closed, and there's no, hotels long closed. So, a little prior knowledge definitely. It's either that or we camped, and which wouldn't have been a big deal.
Did you have to?
No, we actually hoteled it the whole way up, and we're able to plan our stops. I know the longest road day we did was 800 miles, and Are
the roads straight or like curves?
They're everything.
It's
curvy, ups and downs, and as we headed more north, we would start to say, I'd ask, hey, what are those? What do these little signs mean? He goes, frost heave. I go, oh, so that means accelerate for me, because I was just in this thing, heck, just a blast driving it out there. I mean, the suspension's just soaking it up, and the faster you went, the smoother it got, and at least for us, and so, yeah, I couldn't imagine towing up there. I mean, it was just a blast driving this thing up through that in the rough roads, but definitely the more we headed north, the roads would improve in places, and then at times it'd be a dirt road, gravel road, so it definitely varied. I mean, I was laughing at how horrible the road was as soon as we crossed the border from Canada and Alaska. There was like a 10-mile stretch that was just so... They're working on it.
Right.
But it was so destroyed and potholed. I've never... I mean...
So you're...
Oh, my God. It was
weaving and bobbing.
I didn't need to weave or anything, But, I mean, it was just like, wow, this is this is like rougher than most gravel roads we know about. But, there's... Again, and then there's just great stretches. But that was probably one of the roughest... of the roads,
Okay, so when you got into Alaska, how far did you have to go?
About 300-400 miles into Wasilla.
Still.
Yeah. So
before
there was a good stretch, about 1,700 miles or so of just Canada that we traversed.
And then a couple hundred miles of Alaska before you get to the ultimate adventure.
Yeah, I think it's about 400 miles to Wasilla.
Okay, so what was it like from? Okay, we get into Alaska, we get shitty roads. From there to Wasilla?
Not too bad. Still some gravel, some worked areas and stuff, but then other places, nice 2 to 4 lane highways. So it just varies on the area, and I think Now, I'm not an Alaska expert, but I think it just depends. If the road gets down into a tundra, the roads really change from the tundras and the frost and all that
Sure.
in the winter. So I think that has an effect on how they do their roads and what they do out there.
Okay, so you get to Wasilla, and that's where the ultimate adventure begins?
Yeah,
All right.
hotels where this one hotel is where we all meet at.
Before we go there, because I know they're asking and thinking, and let's talk about the truck and its specs, and so everyone knows what you're running before we get into that part. So tell us about the Scout.
So the Scout I built initially about, I think 17, 18 years ago is when I initially built it. And with little changes really since. It's gone through a few engines and a transmission upgrade and
So what engine we have now?
So this thing's got a 392. You can't beat the International Harvester power. I know a lot of guys want to switch out power plants and go elsewhere, but I don't know, to me it's something special just, being able to do what we do with the original International motors.
What kind of cam?
So it's got a Comp 268 cam. It's Hamilton fuel injection, and Bill spent a lot of time tuning this thing just to run as great as it does.
I assume stands headers.
Stands headers, aluminum intake manifold, 4-row radiator. Oh boy, the list goes on and on. It's got a modernized air conditioning system put in it. It's got an engine-powered air compressor as well as an electric air compressor as a backup, and that is to run the air lockers front and rear.
So it has air lockers. What about you got
Dana
reverse
44
shackles
front with 513 gears and RCV axle shafts running the stock Scout brakes. This is a kind of a custom, what I call our super long travel CPT system that I designed and been testing a long time ago. This one actually has rear travel all springs up front, 52-inch springs, so it's a little bit extra.
Yeah, see, they go out beyond the body here.
Correct, because of the 52-inch length on them. It's a little bit longer than our normal long travel kit that we normally sell. So we don't.
So what's going on in the rear end? What we've got back there?
Rear end has got some old school triangle leaf springs that have had a couple leaves taken out, leaf spring put into it. We got Bilstein shocks all around. I've got a custom Dana 60 in the back. Again, 513 gears, air locker, 35 spline Dutchman axles, and then it's got a Ford Motorsport disc brake kit in the back.
And then how about rubber? What are we running here?
We're running a Falcon. Falcon was the sponsor for Ultimate Adventure. They've been the sponsor the last few years, and let me tell you, I was very impressed with their.
You're happy with the tires?
I was very happy. We took the Scout up to speeds nearing 100 miles an hour, and I could not believe how smooth they were. They're a little bit off right now. That's because they're out of balance after that Ultimate Adventure and all that mud we went through. But otherwise, for that first trip, because I've had other brand new tires put on, balanced, and they're still shaking down the road. They're not round. These things were just perfectly round and felt really good on the road and off the road in the mud. They did really well as well.
Can't say enough about the tires.
I can't say enough. I'm very happy. In fact, we're already have been recommending these tires to our customers. So
that's
what it's about. You sponsor some guys like us, we see how they perform. Now we're selling their product and we're moving their product, and that's what it's about.
What about seats? What are you running? And you have a cage, I see.
Yeah, the seats are actually just some old school 88 Honda Prelude. We threw some Wetacoli seat covers on them. They're getting a little ratty. The cage is a custom CPT one that fully comes out as part of the Ultimate Adventure requirements. That was one of the things, to have a full cage in it, the winch. You have to have lockers. You got to have.
Type of winch is that?
That's a Warren 8274.
Okay.
And it was used quite a bit to pull this old Scout out until I figured out how to drive that motor.
What type of radio did they require, and what are you running?
So a VHF radio that I got from PCI Radios. It's an ICOM, 50 watt. So that's what the whole group was using. So it's kind of nice I got that. Even though I already have a CB in the Scout, I do have now a second form of communication.
So were you running the CB2 or that was off?
No, just the VHF.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the what kind of entertainment? Anything?
Old school CD system with just a pile of CDs from Rush to Pink Floyd and everything in between.
Just so they want it, somebody might want to know, was there anything you played twice? The whole trip?
Yeah.
What was it?
The old Daniels Band.
There you go.
I mean,
that's pretty cool.
Some Rush, there's just some songs and some, I mean, Sometimes
We all have favorites.
you know, there's times we want to just listen to that motor sing, and it sounded awesome the whole time.
So the radio was off.
And well, honestly, sometimes too because of the hot tune.
Mhm.
Now here's something that was unexpected getting into Canada.
Okay.
Some stations don't have premium fuel, so if your IH is tuned high that needs the higher octane fuel, you better bring some booster or plan for it.
I was going to ask you about that because I heard you talking about adding the additive and this
Correct.
and that. So
Yeah.
go on with that.
So, you know, getting into Canada unprepared for that, so there was a couple of tank loads that we had to just, I had to nurse it over the hills, otherwise the engine would start to ping on.
So they're running low octane. Do you think there's some water in their fuel?
No.
Do you
nothing
run
like that.
any filtration system at all?
Nothing beyond what Hamilton recommends, just your standard filter,
Standard filtration?
filter, yeah. Yes, we don't have to worry about bad gas, just low octane. It's just only have 87 or diesel. That was it. So, you know, after that, we finally found a place that had octane boost, and we'd get that in there. Add a canister or two.
What kind of oil and what kind of filter do you recommend? And is there a difference between what you ran on this trip and every day?
No, I run the same oils all the time. I run Sweatcoat 2050 weight during the whole trip. Again, 7,500 miles. When I got there, I added 1 quart. And let me think. When I added a quart, although probably could have took 2. When we got done with the whole run of Ultimate Adventure, still up in Alaska, I added 2. I only brought 3 extra quarts with me. Went ahead, put the 2, and put it back at full. And by the time I got down here, it was a couple quarts low again. Keep in mind, I have an 11-quart oil pan on this Scout.
Okay, that
so
helps.
I do go with extended runs. Hence, that's why I went, actually, when I changed the oil and then drove, so I went 8,500 miles on that oil change. And there was several hundred miles of dusty roads. I mean, terribly dusty roads, so bad that air cleaners were having to be replaced and or cleaned mid-trip.
So what air elements are you running?
Running a K&N air filter on it, just a standard open element.
Did you bring the cleaning kit with you?
I had to stop and buy one on day 4 or 5 after we hit several hundred miles of extremely dusty roads. There was guys like by day 6 that were actually falling out because their air filters were sucking in. That was it. The filtration was plugged.
We're going to get into the parts list, but not yet.
Yeah. But I will say on the air filter, though, before I left, and I'd never run one before, I got one of them K&N top filters. And it's a good thing because I needed all the extra filtration to get. That's what kept us going further than others, because not only did I have that, but I had a top. And because the whole round part of my air filter, I got pictures of it, was clogged, and you could still,
Right.
see that the top was still pulling air. But yeah.
Oil filter, what are you running there?
Baldwin. I
Okay.
think they're one of the best.
I've seen the cutaways of those, and they're a darn good filter.
It's much better than Baldwin filters. But I do run Swepco fluids throughout.
Antifreeze?
Antifreeze is just your standard 50-50 green.
Nothing special.
Nothing special there.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you got a good radiator and a Robert Shaw thermostat, it usually keeps them in check.
That sounds good. So I think we've covered anything else on the truck.
I ended up for the trip, I mounted a Dometic fridge in the back, which was nice. It sure beat having to change the ice out and water every day and getting soggy food.
How was the food between here and there? And we'll get into the food on the trip.
That's something I didn't expect. I'm used to truck stops when you travel out here, and
Not many?
not many. No, only towards the border, so to speak. Because once you get out there, there wasn't another what we're used to as a truck stop or travel.
Makes you wonder what they're doing.
They wouldn't survive. I mean, it's just
Well, they've got to be running trucks, or do they?
At least the route we went. I will say. I
Do
don't
you
know
see
about-
many semis?
Oh yeah, we almost got run off the road a couple times. Yeah.
That's probably Bruce Shealy.
Nah, he wasn't up there. But we did almost, actually, a couple times, boy. I mean, it came close. I remember one time when we were heading up, we came coming around an uphill corner, and here comes a semi in the middle of the road. And, we were probably doing 55, 60, and it was a 15-foot drop-off, so there was nothing but hugging the edge and hoping. And, oh, yeah, life flashed by us really quick.
People are wondering, and I'm wondering myself, so the way you describe that, is it 2-lane, or I picture, should be interstate all the way up there. It's not.
No, it's just some asphalt laid out there in a sense.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah, no lines, nothing. Just here it is. Do your best.
How much work did you see being done? Any?
Oh, lots. Yeah.
So
there would definitely be times we would come into work zones and or we're just stopped for construction for whatever reason. They're working on it, but
it's all around all the time.
Every year it changes. They have a shorter work season out there because of the weather too. So
sure.
That has a lot of effect. But yeah, no, they're working on it. There's areas that are terrible and they're getting there. There's other areas they just recently done and they're really nice. So it's amazing how it does just change. I mean, you get into one spot to one city and it's all good, and then as soon as you leave the city north of there or whatever, it falls apart, so to speak. But the frost heaves, like I said, were just something I'd never heard of or known about, and that's
frost heave. I'm still lost. What is that?
So the frost heave, because of like the way the tundra is, and you have this moisture underneath the roads. As it freezes, it buckles the road.
Oh,
and you get these bumps. So a lot of
that could launch you.
Correct. And you can't see some of them. Some you can see, but a lot of them you can't. So they'll put warning signs for it. So for us, it was,
So you're dodging, what was it again? What do you call them?
Frost heaves.
Frost heaves. What about wildlife?
Oh, yeah.
You got wildlife warnings.
Moose, a lot of black bear, porcupine, bald eagle, caribou. We saw elk, deer. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool just seeing all that wildlife. The porcupines were the funniest because each time I came across one, I think I came across 3 the whole trip, just in the middle of the road, couldn't care less, and know that if you hit one, we're both having a bad day because I'm going to have a flat tire and he's going to
bite.
be squashed with a porcupine.
Anything more on the truck, you think? We described everything.
We did a fresh rewire before I left. Rewired the whole thing, all new gauges. So it was nice being able to see oil temperature and fuel pressure. There was times in the trip where we did have some minor mechanical problems. So having the extra gauges and being able to rule out certain things was definitely
very helpful.
Yeah. It's just the transmission's an NV4500. 5-speed with overdrive. I don't think we talked about that. The transfer case is a Jeep Dana 300 with 4-to-1 gears. So when I'm cruising down the highway in overdrive, even with 35s, 513s, it's still a decent RPM for the speed we do. But in low range, first gear, we're about at 115-to-1. So it is really nice being able to have a truck designed that will do highway speeds, yet crawl as low as you need it to crawl.
It made you competitive, I'm sure.
It does. It really helps. It helps you being able to keep control of the vehicle under all circumstances. There's not sometimes you're going too fast for the situation. Sometimes you're going too slow. So you just pick the gear, and that did honestly in the mud take me a few days to figure out because that was a different terrain than I was used to.
So talk a little bit about the Hamilton fuel injection. Did you? I know I like mine on my 4-cylinder. I love it. So did you have any trouble with it? Was it?
Not with the system itself, but we did have some component failures along the way. Now, before we left on the trip, even before I rewired it, my tack used to do a funny little thing. And when I rewired this on a new tack, it still did the same little weird jump in the tack. And I was like, well, that's weird, but it always ran fine. Once we got to Alaska, I think on day 2, just out of the blue, it wouldn't start. We had pulled over, stopped, everyone was airing down. We saw it a few minutes. I'm like, hey, I'm going to run up to the station down the road and go top off. It didn't start. We opened the hood, looked at it, wiggled a couple wires, starts up. Okay, whatever, let's go. We get our gas, we go back, we're on the trail, and all of a sudden, it won't start. We pull over and that's it. Okay, check, I got fuel, I got no spark. Sounds like an ignition module. Put in ignition. I have my backup number 1. Stick it in there, and boom. We got spark. Fires up. Great. Pack all the tools up. We get going. We're on the radio. Hey, we're rolling again. Boo. 100 yards down the road. Dies. Okay. Pull over. It's like, we're down again. Pop the hood. Start diagnosing. No spark again. Okay. Let's change out the coil. Still no spark. Oh, that's weird. So let's get spare ignition module number 2 out. We did that, and for the rest of the trip, it did fine. Other fuel injection-wise issues, during day 4 or 5, we got into heavy mud and water crossings, deep water crossings. And it had messed with the system, made it misfire a couple times, triggering a map code. but it also had killed the O2 sensor. It finally got swamped. So we had to find, I packed the wrong spare O2. We did have to find one of those, which fortunately, and that is what's so great about Bill Systems, they use off-the-shelf parts. So it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of nowhere, you just walk up and say, I got an 88 Chevy, half-ton truck with a 350 in it, and I need this for the TBI. They have it. It was so nice being able to do that. I had bought a spare map when I was in there, no problem. The Napa had a couple spare ignition modules. The O2 sensor was off the shelf, and the parts were inexpensive too. So that's what's
good.
Great about Bill's system and that. The tuning wise, Bill's personally tuned my Scout, spent many hours tuning it, spent quite a few more hours tuning it this past weekend to keep perfecting it. Where, like I was talking about those fuel issues, working on the timing, so where maybe we didn't always have to have premium, but yeah, he's done a fantastic job. This thing runs. The magazine, everyone that went on the Ultimate Adventure, it has said that it's one of the best sounding 392 International motors they've ever heard, and it puts a smile on your face when you're.
Bill stands behind his product, and there's just
absolutely.
Nothing more you can say. He's just great.
Correct.
So,
it's best customer service.
Right.
I'm so glad he puts out systems for everyone in the IH community. And
we're lucky to have him.
Absolutely.